few months ago, following certain military operations conducted by Trump against Iran, a new strategically significant corridor emerged along the Iranian border. Some circles refer to this route as the Trump Corridor. To better understand Trump's plans regarding this area, it is helpful to look back at the background events. In the early 1990s, with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the South Caucasus entered a new yet tense period. The armed clashes between Azerbaijan and Armenia over Karabakh escalated into a full-scale war in 1992. Tens of thousands of people were killed, and hundreds of thousands were forced to leave their homeland. During these years, Russia acted as the main mediator and a key influencer in the region. Iran tried to keep the tension along its border under control, but pursued a balanced policy due to its economic and religious interests. In 2020, the 44-day war completely shifted the balance. Azerbaijan regained control over a large part of its territories, while Armenia faced an internal political crisis. Now, after decades of conflict, Azerbaijan and Armenia are signing a peace agreement, opening a new chapter. But will this signing bring genuine stability to the region, or will it mark the beginning of new struggles? By the late 1980s, against the backdrop of the Soviet Union's political and economic decline, national conflicts among the republics within the Union began to surface more openly. In February 1988, the local Soviet authority in the Armenian SSR adopted a decision to unite Nagorno-Karabakh with Armenia. According to Soviet law, this decision was illegal, but Moscow was unable to bring the situation under control. Armenian demonstrations began in Karabakh, accompanied by armed incidents. Between 1989 and 1990, mutual ethnic cleansing took place. Azerbaijanis in Armenia and Armenians in Azerbaijan were displaced from their homes. The continued presence of the Soviet army in the region created a strange situation. Weapons depots were left in limbo, and both Armenian and Azerbaijani volunteers tried to seize them. In December 1991, the Soviet Union officially collapsed. Azerbaijan and Armenia were now independent states, but they had only outdated Soviet-era weapons and inexperienced armies. In February 1992, the war had already broken out openly. The bloodiest event was the Khojaly massacre. Hundreds of Azerbaijani civilians were killed, and hundreds more were taken captive. This created a political explosion in Azerbaijan and drew international attention to the conflict. However, the reaction of Western states was limited, mostly humanitarian aid and statements. Although Russia was formally neutral, in reality, it supported Armenia with weapons and military equipment. A large portion of the Armenian forces in Karabakh consisted of former Soviet officers. In March and April, Iran took on a mediation mission, facilitating meetings between the parties in Tehran and Tabriz. However, the talks ended without results. The US and Europe established the Minsk Group under the CSCE, now OSCE, but its influence was weak at that stage. By the end of 1992, over 250,000 Azerbaijanis were displaced from Armenia, and more than 600,000 people became refugees from Karabakh and surrounding regions. Armenia also expelled over 200,000 Azerbaijanis living within its territory. Refugee camps, temporary settlements, and food shortages were among the harshest legacies of this war. By late 1992, although the Azerbaijani army had reclaimed certain territories, the overall situation remained tense. The Armenian side gained the upper hand thanks to better supplies, coordination, and the experience of former Soviet officers. During the winter months, the Karabakh front stabilized somewhat, but a major attack was anticipated at any moment. At that time, Azerbaijan lacked stable governance, and power struggles were ongoing. In June 1993, a military coup took place, with forces led by Surat Husanov marching toward Baku. To fill this power vacuum, Haydar Aliyev, the chairman of the Nakhchivan Supreme Assembly, was invited to Baku and effectively took control of the country. This became a turning point in the course of the war, as success on the front lines was impossible without internal stability. While the occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh continued, the UN Security Council passed resolutions demanding Armenia withdraw from the territory. However, none of these were implemented. By the end of 1993, the OSCE's Minsk Group became more active. Turkey, the US, Russia, and other countries initiated mediation efforts. Haydar Aliyev activated parallel diplomatic channels with both Russia and Western countries. The goal was to halt attacks on the front lines and to rebuild military resources within the country. By the spring of 1994, both sides had suffered heavy losses. Tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians had lost their lives. Azerbaijan had lost 20% of its territory, while Armenia faced international pressure. Economically, both countries were on the brink of exhaustion. In May 1994, through Russian mediation, the parties agreed to the Bishkek Protocol. A ceasefire came into effect on May 12, 1994. This ceasefire did not fully resolve the conflict. It merely froze the war. Nagorno-Karabakh and 7 surrounding districts remained under de facto Armenian control, although internationally recognized as part of Azerbaijan. During the 26-year period of relative ceasefire following the First Karabakh War, the conflict was not fully resolved. Although negotiations were held under the mediation of the OSCE Minsk Group, no real progress was made. The April 2016 clashes demonstrated that the Azerbaijani army was no longer the same. It had strengthened both technically and tactically. In 2018, following the Velvet Revolution in Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan came to power and made strong statements regarding the Karabakh issue, which further strained relations with Baku. On September 27, 2020, heavy fighting broke out along various front lines. Turkey was the first to openly declare its political support. Military advisors, communication systems, and especially Bayraktar TB, 2 drones provided a significant advantage on the battlefield. Israel stood out with its advanced technologies. Precision-guided missile systems, kamikaze drones, and reconnaissance equipment quickly dismantled the defensive lines of the Armenian army. Pakistan stood by Azerbaijan diplomatically. It issued statements of support on the international stage and provided certain military logistical capabilities. Georgia played a crucial logistical role. It kept transit routes open and did not obstruct the transportation of military supplies. Throughout the war, Russia portrayed itself as neutral. Its statements conveyed the message, "We are not taking sides." However, the reality was different. Although Armenia is a CSTO member, Moscow did not intervene directly because the fighting officially took place not on Armenian territory, but in Karabakh. The Kremlin's main goal was clear. The war should not end with a complete victory for Azerbaijan. It should end, but through Russian mediation, so that Russia does not lose its military foothold in the region. And finally, the November 10th ceasefire was signed. On paper, there were 3 signatures: Aliyev, Pashinyan, and Putin. However, the architect of this agreement and the game changer was Moscow itself. In August 2019, in Stepanakert, Nikol Pashinyan declared, "Karabakh is Armenia, period." This statement effectively paralyzed the negotiation process and was regarded by Azerbaijan's political leadership as an open provocation. During the 2020 war, this declaration was frequently recalled. The sparks of the fighting began 2 months before the war. During a ceasefire violation on the front line, an Azerbaijani general was killed. This caused major unrest among the people and signaled the imminent start of the war. Following this event, tens of thousands of people held a "Support the Army" rally in Baku. Around midnight, a group of protesters entered the parliament building, which sparked political debates. On September 27th, fighting broke out along the entire front line. Intense clashes occurred. Both sides had been preparing for this war, which would last for years. I present to you footage from the battle. Pashinyan, Aliyev, and Putin, 3 signatures, 1 declaration. On paper, it was a ceasefire, but in reality, it was an official acknowledgement of military defeat for Armenia and the end of 30 years of occupation for Azerbaijan. According to the ceasefire agreement, an approximately 2,000-strong Russian peacekeeping contingent was deployed in Karabakh and the Lakan corridor. This move strengthened Moscow's influence in the region and served as a control mechanism between the parties. After the war, revanchist forces opposing Pashinyan rapidly gained strength in Armenia. These groups opposed the peace process and demanded the return of lost territories. Their activities increased political tension in the country and created significant obstacles on the path to peace. Turkey openly stood by Azerbaijan throughout the war. President Erdogan repeatedly sent the message, "Azerbaijan is not alone," and showed political support at every opportunity. After the war, Turkey began playing an active role in opening the Zangezur corridor and participating in economic projects in the region. In September 2023, the Azerbaijani army launched a large-scale anti-terror operation against Armenian armed groups remaining in Karabakh. Lasting only 24 hours, this operation forced the separatist fighters to surrender. This marked the de facto end of the long-standing separatist regime in Karabakh. Azerbaijan gained full control over the region. Starting from 2024, the process of precisely mapping the state borders border between Azerbaijan and Armenia began. This is called delimitation. This is a much more complex task than simply drawing and marking borders on a map. It involves considering the interests of both sides, historical facts, the locations of villages and cities, natural boundaries, and security concerns. The delimitation process is also one of the key requirements of the peace agreement. In other words, having clearly defined borders is essential for ensuring lasting peace and stability after the war. The war dealt heavy economic blows to both Azerbaijan and Armenia. Azerbaijan entered the war with significant military expenditures. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on weapons and equipment, and investments were made to bring the army to a state of readiness. During the fighting, infrastructure, roads, bridges, and settlements suffered serious damage. For Armenia, the economic shock was even harsher. It lost territories it had occupied for nearly 30 years, suffered heavy human losses, and remained under international pressure. The economy contracted, investments halted, and the currency depreciated. The South Caucasus conflict impacted the region's international energy and trade routes. For the arms market, however, this war sparked significant growth. Turkey, Israel, Russia, and other countries saw an increase in arms sales due to the conflict. For example, Bayraktar TB2 drones attracted global attention, and their exports to other countries increased. Since energy lines and pipelines passed through the conflict zone, their security became a priority for international trade. Azerbaijan's energy projects, the Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan oil pipeline and the South Caucasus gas pipeline, gained importance amid the war and tensions. This conflict revealed the interests of major powers in the South Caucasus. Russia has been the strongest player in the region for many years. After the war, it maintained its military and political position with a peacekeeping contingent in the area. Moscow tries to maintain balanced relations with both Azerbaijan and Armenia. One of the most discussed topics following the peace agreement was the Zangezur corridor. This corridor will connect Azerbaijan's main territory with the Nakhchivan Autonomous Republic and accelerate its ties with Turkey. The United States prioritizes stability and energy security in the South Caucasus. However, its direct military or political intervention in resolving the conflict was limited. Washington primarily provides diplomatic support and promotes the development of democratic institutions in the region. The U.S. maintains relations with both Azerbaijan and Armenia and seeks to balance the Russia-Turkey rivalry in the area. The Zangezur corridor is not just a road, it is at the center of geopolitical games in the South Caucasus. Through this corridor, Azerbaijan connects its main territory with Nakhchivan and sharply strengthens its ties with Turkey. But why is the U.S. interested here? For many years, the U.S. has sought to weaken Russia's dominance in the region. The Zangezur corridor is a strategic tool for Washington to increase its influence here and control energy and trade routes. Attention to this project grew during the Trump administration, and the U.S. aims to play a more active role in the region in the future. However, this is a serious source of concern for Iran. The corridor will create new centers of power near Iran's northern borders and reduce its regional influence. Officials in Iran fear that opening the Zangezur corridor will harm their national security and economic interests. In its recent statement, Iran declared, "We will not allow this to be opened either with Russia or unilaterally." The peace agreement and new transport corridors bring fresh momentum to the region, creating great opportunities for economic development. The delimitation of borders and restoration of trade relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia will shape the region's future. However, risks remain. Revanchist forces, regional power rivalries, and political tensions threaten stability. In particular, the interests of Russia, Iran, and Western countries in the region could lead to conflicts emerging in new forms. Economically, opening new corridors, cooperation with Turkey, and energy projects hold great potential. They can transform the region into a transportation and energy hub. In other words, stability and development are possible, but this requires responsible and constructive approaches from all parties. In the next video, we will talk about the importance of this corridor and the situation that will arise in the region. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. A quick reminder, this channel analyzes political situations and offers different perspectives. The comments you leave here really help me understand your political views better. So please, make sure to share your thoughts on this topic.